Hi guys, I'm Laura Vitale, and on this episode of Laura in the Kitchen, we are making apple slab pie, also sort of like apple bars. Basically, it tastes like an apple pie, but in a much easier way of making and serving it, especially if you are going to be doing Thanksgiving this year, like an appetizer or finger food style or buffet style. It's just much easier to make, it's much easier to serve. I find, and this is actually a comment that I got from several friends of mine that said, I love apple pie, hate making it. Because if you think about it, when you're making apple pie, it can be a little bit intimidating, especially when you go to serve it, of cutting this beautiful slice and serving it to someone without it falling apart. There's a lot of moisture in there. You know, a lot of things can go wrong. But this recipe, it is like the beauty of an apple pie and an apple crisp all together in a very easy way. And it's fantastic. Let's start by making a homemade crust. I do a very simple, traditional all butter crust for this, and it's perfect. I do all-purpose flour, a pinch of salt, and some sugar, a little sweetness, and it also helps with color. Lots and lots of cold, unsalted butter, and you're going to need some really cold water. Now, depending on what you read, you'll see a lot of debate about what makes crust, pie crust the best. Some people use vodka instead of water. Some people use vinegar in the water. I don't think any of it matters. I think the most important thing when it comes to making really good pie crust is to making sure the butter or the fat that you're using is extremely cold and that you don't overwork it. You want to see really chunky pieces of butter running through the crust, the dough, because that's what's going to give you those beautiful flaky pockets of goodness. So I'm doing it in a food processor. You're going to just take your flour and sugar and salt mixture. Add that right in. I try to have a measuring cup help me because I'm tired of spilling my flour all over my surface. And then to it, you're gonna add your butter. Now, a lot of the times, I also like to do 3/4 butter, 1/4 of like shortening, like a vegetable shortening. I'm really into an all butter pastry right now, so I'm adding all butter, but you can certainly do half and half. Some people just do all shortening. That's totally up to you. And then what I'm going to do right now is pulse it. I am not going to let this go until I no longer see butter in it. I really want to see butter in the size of like little peas running through it. So just pulse it until you get there. I gave this about 10 pulses, and I want you to see something. You see how some of the butter is still in pretty large pieces? That is okay, because I'm going to continue to pulse it as I'm streaming in some cold water, and that just really helps prevent the butter and everything to get all sticky. I don't want that, because then you won't have a very flaky crust. So just slowly add your water. That is fantastic. I don't know if you can see, but I can still see lots of pieces of butter, and you can see that it's all looking a little crumbly, but that's good. That means that you haven't overworked everything, and that when you pinch it together, it stays together. And all I'm going to do is literally gather it into a disc, and I'm going to cover this with some plastic wrap, and I'm going to stick it into the fridge for about an hour. And that's it. It's the easiest pie crust on the planet. You can absolutely also cut the recipe in half if you're not going to be making a large amount. I'm doing the whole thing because honestly, I don't know if you can see, but I can still see the butter running through it, which is good. Good thing, see? All that. Honestly, they are so good. Drop some off to your neighbors. If you're not going to make them on actual Thanksgiving, you can make them any time of the year, especially around this time of the year. It's just perfect for any occasion. I'll make the whole thing and share some of them with our neighbors because they're just so good. So I'm going to wrap them up, pop it into the fridge, and then we move on. Okay, now we're going to make the filling and the topping and pretty much pull the whole thing together. You'll need a ton of apples, and when I say a ton, I mean like 5 pounds. I use a Honey Crisp, but you can use any baking apple you like, just sort of my favorite all around. You need to squeeze 1 lemon in here, followed by, I'm going to add the zest and juice of 2 clementines. You can also use a half of an orange. They just happen to start coming out in the stores right now, little clementines, so I pick them up and I will put them into everything, and it makes everything just that much more festive. And just when you marry lemon and orange and cinnamon together and vanilla in the oven with apples, it's just like there's no better smell in the whole world. So I'm gonna stick them in there. Okay, just about there. And I'm just gonna go ahead and cut them in half and then squeeze. These have no seeds, so I'll just squeeze them right in. Now to this mixture, you're gonna add flour, cinnamon, sugar, pinch of salt, and a splash of vanilla. And now carefully, well, as careful as you can manage, because my bowl is just not big enough. I should have just grabbed my big pot. I would typically do something this big in a pot, but you know, I like a challenge. What can I say? Just mix everything together as best you can. Filling is done, and for the topping, you just need all-purpose flour, brown sugar, granulated sugar, and butter. Make sure your butter is cold. Add it to your dry mixture, and then using a pastry cutter, you can also just use like 2 forks, or you can pulse it in a food processor. I'm just gonna cut this in. I want the butter to be distributed well, and then we are nearly there. I also have my baking sheet prepped. This is a really old baking sheet, which I love, so don't make fun. It's a 15 by 2 by 1 inch. It says right on there. But basically like any 15, you can also stretch it to like a 17-inch, like a standard baking sheet. Just make sure that there's enough room, enough lip, so that you've got about 1 inch on each side, because otherwise you can run the risk of juices just overflowing into your oven. But it does work with both, so do not fret. It will be awesome. I'm just gonna take my time and break this butter into the flour. That looks perfect. I don't know if I said 15 by 10 by 1. Anyway, I will have everything written on the recipe portion on the website. Don't worry. Okay, flour your surface. Not heavily floured, but just enough. Unwrap your dough. And you're just gonna, you see how it's not, it's holding together, but it's not all gluey and goopy. You still see the butter running through it. That's gonna make a fantastic pie crust. But you're basically gonna roll this out so it's about the same size as your baking sheet, if not just a tiny, tiny bit bigger, just so that you can fit it all in there. And just take your time. Sprinkle a little flour where needed, when needed. Move it around so it doesn't stick to your surface too much. Okay. Get your baking sheet closer to you. Roll this out. I stabbed these 2 areas by accident, but hey, sometimes it happens, you know? Sometimes it happens. Stabbed it with my finger. Don't stretch the dough, kind of fit it in there by moving it into place, because when you stretch it, as it's baking, it is just going to stretch right back to where it wants to be, right? And then if you have any areas that, I'm just gonna give an example, like right there, you can just take from one place and put it on another. Just like so. To cut off the excess, I use a like little, I don't know what you want to call that, like a fluted cutter. This is technically a ravioli cutter, but just don't tell anyone, because I'm not going to sit here and crimp. Absolutely not. You just want to cut the excess off. Just use a knife. Don't worry about it. You're not going for perfection here. We are going for deliciousness, but not perfection. Now we're just gonna get in here with all of our apples and just, oh, it smells incredible. It smells so festive. And now you just add your topping evenly, well, as even as you can manage, over the top, like so, like that. And you're just gonna pop this into the oven. I have the oven on at 350. I actually prefer to cook this lower and slower and longer. I just think that you get a much better result. The fruit really has a chance to cook down and to get syrupy and delicious, and everything just kind of gets gloriously golden. I'm gonna pop this in, then we'll let it cool, and then we slice. Okay, so the pie was in the oven for an hour. Sous Chef has entered the picture. She was very upset when she realized that we were filming and she was not part of it. Right? But here you are. Okay, let's get this out of here first. When it comes out of the oven, it's really bubbly, it's really hot, and just like you would regular apple pie, you have to let it cool completely. And then I lined my baking sheet with parchment paper. You have to be a little bit careful because it is kind of tricky to get this out, but it should slide out relatively easy. And now, hold on, Tootsie Pop. And you are going to absolutely need to serve this with some ice cream. It broke, it's okay. With some ice cream before you serve it, but let's put a little powdered sugar on it. Wait, hold on. Ready? You take it from the side. I'm gonna show you a trick. Ready? And then you just do it like that, like snow, all on the edges.
Can I do it?
Yes, go ahead. Ooh, we're gonna be here till Christmas, but we'll get it done regardless, right? And when I go to serve this, I'm just gonna make it really pretty with some powdered sugar and some fresh cranberries, and it's gonna look lovely. Okay, I think that's good. I think that's good. I think it's good. Oh, look at that.
It looks like snow.
Now it's snow. Let's cut into this. Corner slice. If you know, you know. Look at that. I mean, look at that.
Can I try?
Absolutely. Ready, set. Big one, big one. Mmm. Mmm.
Yummy.
Remember when I baked this the other day? You said, Mama, what smells so good? We're dealing with some seasonal allergies, just so you know. Let's cut a smaller piece than that so that you can fit it better. Big bite, big bite. Show our friends how good you eat. Mmm. Is that good or is that good? Go to laurenkitchen.com. Get the recipe. It is so fabulous. It's so perfect if you are hosting. The recipe is there for you. Hope you enjoyed spending time with me. We'll see you in the next one. Bye. Bye-bye.